We were wandering about the Gloucestershire Vintage Extravaganza on the Saturday. We didn't have the engine in steam, so we're seeing what else was in steam. We came across a rather smart-looking Aveling roller, and Ash introduced me to Pete, who owns the engine, and he told me its story. I've included the entire story here in full, just in case you want to see the full history, what it really takes to restore one of these fantastic engines. So whose engine is this then?
So this next man down here, this is Pete Tighe's engine. He saved it from a playground in Lincolnshire. I'm sure he will tell you all about it. He's got some lovely pictures.
So what's your name?
Pete Tighe.
Pete Tighe.
This was built in 1922. Aveling imported. Worked up a lot of his life in Grantham. This is it, 1952. The driver is a guy called Charles Theophilus Joyce. He was an apprentice steam engine driver. He lived in a house with the master driver and 3 apprentices in Grantham. He used to lodge with a guy called Tim Harris's mum's sister. Tim Harris is the guy that saved the engine from the paper.
Right. So with a long history with the engine then?
Yeah, he's been on it in its working life, just on it.
Right.
Charles was known as Foxy Joyce the Poacher. So 1957, it's working up in Grantham here. This is from a book called Century of Service. He's got his pipe upside down. In 1961, it was laid up in Bishop's Waltham, and that was the end of its working life. So that was it. It's lost all the brass, the badge, but everything else is still there. In 66, it was presented by Edison to Wynnum Park in Grantham. And you'll see everything was painted, the chains, the wheels, everything's still on it. The gears were painted, safeties are there, everything's still on it. And this is one of the schools up there. And then over the years it deteriorated. It was in the play park 43 years.
Wow.
And this is it. The steps I always thought would be useful for me at the aged gentleman. But this is it. You've still got regulator, safety valves, steering wheel, everything on there.
I'm surprised bits hadn't been nicked off it. I suppose, but it's all painted up.
The motion guards have now gone. Still got the safeties and the regulator. Here, now all of that's gone.
Right.
The steering wheel, the safeties, the regulator, everything's gone. So the roof's gone for the canopy. It was removed in the early 90s. A girl fell off it and sued the council. So the council took it out, and it was one of the first ones. And after that, because of the liability on the councils, they removed all from about 2 or 3 play parks.
Yep. Yep.
He took it, and a group of people, restoration experts, whatever you call them, thought they could do something with it. So they stripped it down and realised actually we haven't got the skills, we don't have the knowledge, we don't have the facilities to do it. 3rd February 2013, that's how it arrived today.
Wow.
Most of it was scrap. And that's what we stripped it down to. So that's the outer wrapper. There's no firebox in it. There's no crown on it. There's no bucket in it. There's no tube plate in it. So everything you see says new barrel, new tubes, tube plate. The firebox is the original firebox with a new crown on it. And a new back end.
Johnny White
Safeties are new. The displacement lubricator, I've got antique shop and brickwork.
Right.
Everything shiny, apart from that is brand new. New piston valve sleeve, piston valves. All the bearings are white metal, hand scraped by me.
It's gone. It's getting
All these stays
Yeah.
are machined, threaded, tapered, screwed through, cut off an angle point to about 4mm. Both sides, it took us about 200 and something of them, because there's the sides, the front, the back, the top. Heated up, bashed over with a hammer.
It's a real labour of love, isn't it?
Then to get it to look nice, you've got a little windy gun with a little end on it. That you work it around to make it look like that. And then a caulking gun, around 3 times, which is a chisel, windy chisel, to seal it. So that's every one of those. Both sides, front, back, and on the inside of it. This tender is new, 10mm steel, bent by hand, using
Wow.
heat over a former. So we heated it up with oxypropane and bashed it with aluminium hammers this big. And that's what we ended up with.
It's a lot of work, that, isn't it?
We put 478 rivets in that we had to make. A lot of them are threaded rivets. The steering wheels are cast in. Regulator handle I've made. All the safeties are made.
Yeah, I like that.
Everything shines in. The copper pipe is 8 inch thicker than the copper piping. You won't get this. It's not your household piping.
Yeah.
You can't bend it with a pipe bender. You have to pack it with sand, heat it up with oxy,
Yeah.
and bend it gently. We've
So-
got some stuff from India.
So you keep the radius inside
Yeah.
so that you've got the flow.
Yeah. The wheels I had rubbered because they're cast steel. So you hit a drain cover in a road, you're sliding. You hit a cow pat on the road, you're sliding. So these give you a bit of extra security.
Well, they're a little bit more forgiving then, aren't they? You know, just to...
Drive up there. That's new. That was flame cut, fabricated, so it's welded all new. The axle's new. The axle bearings are new. So that was all line bored out in situ. And new axle. And that was a nightmare. Because getting it into there, 2 keys, one's feathered and one's full.
In a living van, that's what you need.
The full one's okay, but the feathered one, no, that has to go all the way in. So you're bringing it out, filing some more off the axle, just by hand,
Yeah.
sticking it in and marking it as you go, until about 5 inches and have to get in. All the little marks I was filing off and filing off. God knows how much work.
So from... I mean, you know, how many years did it take you to get...
11 years
11 years.
to get to this stage. And we've not finished yet. But the running board, made by a friend of mine, Sam Thompson, he's a carpenter and a boilermaker.
And then a few miniatures.
I wanted it dovetailed.
Yeah.
So everything is dovetailed on it. There's no screws holding it together, it's wedged.
Great pancakes.
I wanted him to leave the scribe marks in as well. Made these, sunk in ones.
And you've got a nice little chest there, haven't you,
Yeah.
for bits and pieces
And
and
the drawer
tools.
inside it, the drawer inside is dovetailed as well.
Right.
And it's oak. The canopy's beech, and this is beech as well. So every screw put in the canopy, I had to pre-drill it, pre-screw it with a wood screw,
Yeah.
and put those brass screws in with Vaseline. They all had to be done by hand. You couldn't use a electric screwdriver because they just snapped off. The last screw I put in snapped off. Oh, that will never come out.
But at least then you can sheet her up properly and...
Well, the sheets are being made at the moment.
Right.
All of this is a part of the barrel, obviously. It's new.
Yeah.
Everything up the front here is new, all made, all hand cut out with an angle grinder and all the cladding's new. We had to make that. We bent it on some rolling, some benders at Collins, but then cutting it out to this shape and fitting it together. Under here is 3 steel bands, which you can see one there, and they're stepped off.
Oh yeah.
See, they're stepped off the barrel to give it an air gap, and then insulation's put in there. These are made.
And have you got lamps for them?
No, I haven't yet. still building this.
Yeah.
Every single nut on here has been made for this engine. They're all pre-war Whitworth nuts. So every nut, stud, bolt has been made to pre-war.
I know somebody who's got one.
So it's one spanner size bigger than the original. Well, what they've got nowadays. These I've had specially made for me because you never ever know, but I cheated here and they're M30s.
Right.
But you want to see the thread. And the dome, I did those by putting a bolt in the lathe at home, putting a floppy disk on it, on the angle grinder,
Right. Yeah.
to get that. This is cast. Here was wafer thin. It wasn't even a millimetre, it was nothing. So that all of this has been built up all the way down here. So it went away to a company called Slindon Services. So you build a clay pitch around this, you heat it up to I think 800 degrees over a couple of days, and you weld through a little hole to build it all up, and you're not going to know if it's worked until 3 days later when it's cooled down. So all of that, everything back there has all been built up. That's ½ inch thick now. All these screws, they're all Whitworth. Everything's Whitworth apart from those. These I made those twice because the original ones I made I just went off photographs and they were too long, so I had to remake them all. But to set the safety valves, it's guesswork. You put these in, you've got the engine in steam, and then you put in little thin shims in there.
Right.
And then you can make the proper little bronze bits that go on. So that's a lot of work.
How she finished her working life with a half canopy on a flywheel brake, and she was painting
Everything. This is thick wall copper, goes in and goes up. If you have problems steaming, you'll open that. It puts steam up to draw the fire through.
Yeah. Yeah.
2 old machines on the JCD5.
Yeah. Because I've got a blower on my 4CD.
Oh yeah.
But I can do that from the foot plate. So yeah.
Oh nice. No, I can't do that. We even made these brackets here. We made those as well.
Right. Yeah.
Steering column, steering wheel. That's sweated on there. So I cut the keyway in here. There's a keyway in there, but because you can't slide the key down here because there's no keyway up here. So there's a washer there with a keyway in it. This has got a keyway in it, and getting that lot in together is an absolute pig of a job. It's never going to come apart again. That's original though. And Sam, the carpenter, made a some brackets that give it some size.
Yeah.
That's what he did.
Yeah. I mean that's well. You think if you want to be able to stand on there and get up to the top of the chimney and whatever, then you want
It's a
to.
beastie, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's original. The original cover for it.
And it's just showing the just where it's corroded over time.
Yeah, a lot of it with the corrosion was the cross would have been kids drawing on it or something, and it corroded into it because on the flywheel and on the tender it said Andy loves such and such.
Yeah.
And I was chatting to a guy a couple of days ago, and he said, "Oh, me and my mate Andy used to play on this." I said, "I've got the photograph, so he's got his email address, and I'll send him the photograph of the old tender with Andy written on it and the flywheel."
Yeah.
Because it's actually etched into the flywheel, so there's no fill up on any of this. It's just paint. The horse, you know, they that and the logbook was presented to the Mayor of Grantham from Edison. When the girl fell off and sued the council, the mayor had subsequently died. His wife thought she'd be Liza, so she threw that and the logbook thing in. Got rid of it.
Oh.
So that's not original. Now there is meant to be a badge here that says number 414. I'll have to actually get one made still.
There you go. And he'd fall over. He had to stand against the engine.
These are quite complicated, those covers there. Yeah, these are things to do. So all of this is audio. It's all hardened, but you'll notice that the split pins is cut out to take the split pin and the washer. It's kind of a level I've gone down to.
But she's so smooth, isn't she? There's no noise in that motion at all, is there?
These are original, yes.
And the flywheel's original.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the eccentrics and the conrod are all original, and the crank. The only new shaft is the axle. All of this is all new. And coming up with the design here to run the lubricator. We came up with that. Then last year that fell off, hit there, and snapped the bolts off probably in that. And so just redid it, and it's working perfectly. I had to make that. Didn't have one. I made that one and made two up there as well. This is a new casting because the original was broken here. So that's a new casting put on. I had to make the taper bin for it. But that's all good. This rattle. So this is a temporary job at the moment just to see if it'll stop the rattle.
Right.
And it has. So I'll now make something a bit more thermal support.
Just a little guide that it can.
But it's nothing on the back of it, it just stops it.
Yeah.
Because it really sleeps the lever back.
It'll be lovely with just a guide on top, an oiler on top, so that it can, you know, it'll keep it in place, keep it lubricated.
He limped into here, didn't he?
So I had to put a packing piece in there, it wouldn't steer properly. That's just a bit of stainless head, but I made all the brackets, all the pipe work. Made all the mud on wheels. They were castings, so settle those around and make those. Lubricator, it's not the case, because that's the bigger one than normal. That whole spot. That's how we sit right there.
And with a nice gauge there on the side, so you can see.
Yep. The ash pouch new. It was a prototype Colin made years and years ago to see if we could make it. And it was right length for 2 wide, so we took 2 inches out the middle of it.
Yeah.
Did the job. Greases on the wheels as opposed to the oilers.
Yeah.
All brakes new. All from all of that from the wood. That's exactly to draw in every piece of wood, which doesn't make any sense because here's the hinge, and that has to be one piece, and that's screwed top and bottom. But that's to draw it. You'd surely have a split piece here, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Nope, that's how it was. This wheel is an offside wheel, and it's cast, it's an older wheel. But these are the holes for the scarifier. On the other side you'll see they've got those as well, but it's bolted. Sam made a 5-wheel brake, so I wanted one.
Just handy for holding her back.
Actually no, I've not used it for that. When I'm coming up to a roundabout or something or traffic lights, I've got to stop.
Yeah.
Regulator shut, slowing down, and I'll use that to stop it in the 2 positions at the starting. So I haven't got to go back into reverse and
Yeah.
That is the original beading. That is the beading off Ash's engine. Everything. That's the original door bar. That's powder coating. The seat, that's a 30 spring. That section's from an old trolley from the Great Western Railway. That's a piece of boilerplate over. So that's removable if you want it, just lifts straight out. The turns, so I made that. shaft down the middle that rotates.
So you can actually, as you hold it, when
Yeah.
it goes round,
See, you haven't got
it's
to
nice
grease
and
your
smooth.
hand.
Yeah. Oh, what a lovely engine.
The drive hub screw. We went to get the other one off, and it cracked. We thought, was it cracked? It's taper wedged like that. We didn't know that, otherwise we'd have drilled it and used a draw hammer to pull it out. But, so we got one flame cut, and Colin welded it all together. So you can see this wheel's bolted.
Yep.
That one was cast. So we had the Scarify holes on here. It would have had a Scarify, and it would have been a Morrison 1970 or something, I think was the Scarify that was on it. But I wasn't worried about that. This strap, I got Sam to make for me. This is cut with an angle grinder. I'm quite particular when it comes to certain things, how I want things done.
But that to cut that by hand with an angle grinder and have it consistent is not easy, is it?
He's an amazing guy, Sam. But he must have small feet because no one else's foot fits in there. But it's all worked out nice. And if you get up on it, I'll show you one other thing. You have to see it up here. That piece is the original piece, how it looked in the paint part. That's the paint. All
Right.
I've done is varnish it.
Just to keep a bit of its
Yeah.
history on there.
Yeah.
Beautiful,
I mean,
yeah.
a lot of this, 90% of the gear guard is original.
Right.
What you're looking at's all
Yeah.
original. Most of that's new at the front. I just put this here, just temporary to see if it worked. It's been a 4 shaft, you get covered. And this worked perfectly. So I'm going to make a proper one that comes over both gears now. I'm going to put oilers down on the axle now because it actually did have them originally.
Right.
It would have come up here because I found the remains of the pieces when I got it. There's 2 like wedges in there with a hole for the pipe, so it didn't have tubes in. The axles, the bearings in there were oval, and Richard Buckham was working at Collins when I was looking at them. See, what are you doing? I said, I'm taking the bearings out, going to turn them around. He said, get off there. He said, get them out of there, I'll line bore through there. So I got them out and he bolted those up. Good God. He had a torque wrench, but then he had this little thing which like increases it by God knows what. I hate when they're torqued like that. So we made the axle. James Buckham made the bearings to fit the axle. That bearing he pressed in, 18 tons to press in, and that was 14. And it's hammering, hydraulic. Are those going to knock these castings? No. Then the axle just slid in. It's perfect. Use this hardly any oil. A lot of money. This is removable here.
Okay.
Bolted in.
Yeah.
And what you stored on there is removable as well. So you can
So you can get it properly cleared out. And
take this out, take that out, and you've got room to do what you want. But yeah, there we go. That's pretty much it.